ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एधि वेदस्य आणीस्थ श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधीतेनाहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Om. May my speech be firmly established in my mind. May the mind too be firmly established in my speech. May there be perfect correspondence between my thoughts, words, and actions. May the truths of the scriptures come alive to me. May not what I learn from them ever forsake me. Let me live my life day and night according to their teachings. I shall speak what is appropriate. I shall speak the truth. May that protect me. May that protect the teacher. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Let us feel our true divine nature, our true self in our heart as a steadily burning candle flame. Let us concentrate on that. I am of the nature of consciousness, unchanging, unflinching. I am the light of knowledge. With concentration increasing, I see this light of self has become more and more intense and bigger in extent too. My whole personality, my body, my mind, everything is filled with this light. In fact, I am light. I am seeing that all the bones, all blood vessels, different organs, all nerves, everything including skin is actually made of light. Just as a stone image is made of stone, every single tissue in that image is stone. Exactly, I am seeing that I am light. And with that, the whole universe also is seen made of the same light. All different forms are merged in the same one without second, uniform, homogeneous luminosity. There is no I and world. There is no time and space. It is one still moment. Om, peace, peace, peace. 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 Om, peace, pea peace. So, dear friends, let us begin today's discussion on this wonderful biography of Sri Ramakrishna, a spiritual biography which combines both the outer actions and the inner intentions and the moods with which those actions are being performed. Let us begin with our usual prayers. Tava kathamritam tapta jivanam kavibhiriditam kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadattatam Bhuvi Grananti Te Bhurida Jana. So, friends, last Tuesday we had stopped when there is the discussion that was ongoing about Sri Ramakrishna's appearance in a state similar to that of an intoxicated state when somebody consumes the alcoholic intoxicating drinks or some such substance. Sri Ramakrishna's behavior, his outer movements were similar in appearance to such a state, like a person who is drunk cannot keep the feet steady. It is likely to fall down. The movements, they appear to be all distorted, and the person can lose balance any time. That is when you see that the person probably is under the influence of alcohol or some such similar thing. In fact, they give a test, if somebody is suspected of driving drunk, then they take the breath test as well as they take some sobriety test, like is the person able to move properly with the properly synchronizing steps. Can the person stand on one leg and so forth, just to see if there is the right balance. And Sri Ramakrishna, on many occasions people have noticed, as Swami Saradananda, one of his beloved intimate disciple, has mentioned that we have seen him day in and day out many times in that kind of state. And yet he could never touch any intoxicant like wine. The description was there that many these mendicants of certain sects would come there, and a few of them would take some wine to free their minds from the influence of the external world. It was as a spiritual practice for them, but as he mentioned, there were rarely someone who really used it for that purpose. Many were just habituated, addicted to that substance, that's all. And when Sri Ramakrishna would talk with them, then they would also offer wine to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna would say, well, I am already drunk with that wine of devotion, I don't need this. And if they insist, he would take a drop with his finger and put it on his forehead. That's it. And even that would make him get into that state of divine intoxication. And to see, today we will be reading a few examples of that author has witnessed. But let us see how it is happening. Before also we have seen Swami Saradananda mentioned this, that Sri Ramakrishna used to live on two planes. One was the plane where he was merged with the divine completely. There was absolutely no awareness of the shapes in this world. No names and forms were in his consciousness then. He was merged in the Brahman, the Absolute, the God, one without second, has forgotten the awareness of his body and all the forms seen there. That was one state. There was another state that he lived in, where he would see the names and forms, but all are like made of God. God in and out of all of them. They are just the forms given to the material called God, as it were, just to describe it our terms, that he would see God in all of them as the material. So, again, let us take up our very familiar analogy that we invoke here many times, that it is if you see animal crackers, then you see all different shapes. Now, when you see say a crocodile or a giraffe or an elephant or whatever, you know that they differ only in shapes and the names that get associated because of that shape. But actually they are same. They don't differ at all. You may pick up an elephant and eat, will taste same like if you pick up a rabbit and eat, because that is not, they are just shapes. All are filled with the same one substance. So Sri Ramakrishna would see that all these different shapes, they are just different shapes and have acquired name because of that shape. But the reality of all of that is the same one divine. So that was the second plane that he used to be. We, as the common human beings, none of these two planes are available to us. Our different planes that we live in, they are like when we are in this awake, we see this I and world in the gross forms, that I am this body, and all these things that I see, they are different things, and they are objects. As I see them, I am the subject. There are certain things here that I like, certain things I don't like. Again, it is subject to change. Something I didn't like yesterday, I like today. And vice versa. So it is, therefore, this is the world that we see. God, we just have heard about in the scriptures that God is in all of them. But we are not able to see it. It is many who have not even thought of that, they would see these just the forms. Those who have read scriptures or have that understanding, they kind of aware that there is God in all of them. It is sitting in their brain as a non-functional information. There is functional information, there is non-functional information. For example, this is a chair here. That is a functional information, means if somebody sees, okay, I need to sit, I can use that. So this is a chair, is a functional information. But it is God. It's heard. We say that God is in everything. But that information, is it functional? It doesn't change our behavior. So, it is a non-functional information, friends. So, the functional and non-functional information is like that. So we have read in books that God is in everything, but it doesn't have any functional impact on our lives. And Sri Ramakrishna, he has experienced this, and God is everything that he knows, and that is the big difference. Second state we are in is like the dream state. When we go in dream, then we are not aware of the body and the other external objects. We get a dream body, as it were, and the objects also are like that, made of just thoughts. It is just the mind that is making it, without the external sense organs being functional. So that is another awareness that we have, but there too the central idea is the same, that I and the object. God is not actually involved in anything, even if that information is there, it is a non-functional information. Means it doesn't matter. Okay, God is in everything. That's okay. What do we have to do with it? It's fine. Yeah, it is a non-functional information. It is like somebody like me. goes to a fish market. Now, since I don't eat it, all that is same to me. Those who like it, eat it, they have the knowledge of the varieties of it. So, they may tell me that this is like this is like this. It is non-functional information. It does not make any change in me. It is so. In Bengali, there is a nice saying: the fruit of that bale fruit, that it has a very hard shell and remains hard even if the fruit gets ripened from inside. So then you break it, take out the pulp and eat it. A very delicious thing. But they say that if a crow gets the information that that bale fruit is now ripe, that doesn't have any functional utility to the crow. What does it matter? The shell is equally hard. I can't pierce that shell. So whether it is unripe or ripe has no functional utility for the crow. So they say in Bengali, bel pakle kaker ki. That crow, what does it matter to a crow whether the fruit is ripe or unripe? It is not going to get it. So everything has God in it. This information for almost all like us is a non-functional information. For Sri Ramakrishna, it is the most functional information. Other things are secondary, like the one who is not just that baby who looks at the animal crackers and thinks that those shapes are real. Those things are real. A grown-up, think of the baby growing and started going to primary school. Now that child knows that they all taste the same. And that is the essence of them. So, for that child, now the shapes are not important. So, for Sri Ramakrishna, these shapes are not important, even though he can identify them. Like a little grown-up child also will be able to tell, yeah, this is a giraffe and that's an elephant. But he knows that as one eats, there is neither giraffe nor elephant. I will be still a vegetarian even if I eat them. So, that is how Sri Ramakrishna's awareness differed from ours. Then the third commonly perceived awareness is we go to deep sleep. We sleep and then we don't know anything. So we are not aware of who am I, what is the world, God or whatever. So these three states we are in. In Sri Ramakrishna, even in all these states, there is the constant awareness of God, whether there is the awareness of the external objects or not. This separation was only of secondary importance there. That the primary thing was all are really God. And that we had discussed that nice story sometimes, that a man was a devotee and was very rich and had all those images of gods made of gold. And then, but as it happens, the wealth comes and goes, it is. So he fell on that poor days. So wealth was gone, so he had to now go and sell these gold images. So these golden images were to be sold. So he took to the goldsmith that an image of Ganesha made of gold. And then Ganesha, as you know, that there is, the vehicle of Ganesha is mouse. So he asked, now think of it, he is a devotee. For him, this is Ganesha, and that is the mouse. So he asked the goldsmith, at what price do you take Ganesha? He quoted the price of the gold. That is what about mouse? Well, same price for the mouse also. For that goldsmith, the shapes were not important at all. He could see the mouse, he could see the image of Ganesha also. But he was functionally aware only of the gold that pervades them. So Sri Ramakrishna was functionally aware of the God pervading in everything, and at just some slightest excuse, even this apparent separation would just vanish, and he would merge in the Absolute. So, these two states were there. And when he was on the border, he had the awareness, but everything was that imbued with various divine forms. We don't see that. And therefore, like a drunkard, he would not see everything as we normally see, because it is not real. These are all merging and going into kind of, dissolving in Brahman. So, therefore, he wouldn't see things as we see. He was seeing God there in different forms. So that is how his movements appear to be that of like an intoxicated person. And here Swami Saradananda has given a few examples that he witnessed. That it is page 583. Before we met the Master, we could not have imagined that a person could be in a drunken state by virtue of divine bliss alone, without using any intoxicants. We vividly remember a time when we considered an author superstitious and foolish because he wrote that Chaitanya would lose outer consciousness while uttering the name of Lord. At that time, a current of skepticism flowed in the minds of the young generation in Calcutta, who tended to doubt everything. The author was one of them. Their leader was Narendranath. He would doubt everything, and this author, Swami Saradananda, doubted but didn't go much into argument with Sri Ramakrishna about it. Narendranath would go into the very strong argumentations against Sri Ramakrishna's such behavior. That it is, what is this? This is unsteadiness. This is not God realization. So he had some idea of God realization. So Sri Ramakrishna would say, you will know only when you get it, you see. So it is, when we happened to meet this unique master, Some time afterwards, we carefully observed him day and night. We saw for ourselves how he would frequently lose outer consciousness while dancing and singing kirtan. If a coin touched his body, he would lose consciousness as soon as he uttered the word Siddhi or Karana. These are the words that some mendicants would use for the intoxicating things. So, those intoxicants, wine and such substances. So, he would become completely intoxicated with divine bliss without having any of that substance. So, in addition to uttering the name of God and his avatars, he would become overwhelmed with pure transcendental bliss, even when saying the word yoni, which reminds ordinary men of sensual pleasures. This word, however, would bring to his mind the blissful divine mother. So, and think of, he himself mentioned, he would think of Brahma Yoni. Yoni, this word is used for the female sex organ. But then Brahma Yoni means it is all the matrix through which all this gets created. So this word gets, Sri Ramakrishna would just think of that, that this is the, when this word is uttered Yoni, it is because the words get meaning from the context that we dwell in. So, like when somebody is seeing a mouse in the house, there is this mouse. One meaning, when somebody is using it in terms of, say, computer, well, I got a mouse, yeah, that's a different thing. That, like somebody says, this is I connected by Bluetooth. Now that Bluetooth is not one of the teeth that you have. It is when the Bluetooth is not functioning, then, well, you don't go to a dentist to fix it. So the words are different with different circumstances. They reveal different meanings. So Sri Ramakrishna's mind always being connected with God. The word Yoni, we would always that invoke the idea that the mother of the universe from which everything springs up. She is the mother which gives birth to all these worlds, everything around. So that is how his mind would merge in that. So, and his author actually has seen this. The master would often visit the house of his great devotee Ramchandra Datta at Simla, Calcutta. Other devotees would also join that joyful gathering. One day, he talked about God with the devotees there and then got ready to return to Dakshineshwar. Ram's home was on Madhurai's lane, which was so narrow that carriage could not reach the house. One had to leave the carriage on one of the main streets on the other side, east or west, either side, and walk up to the house. On that day, carriage was waiting for the master, and then master walked in that direction, followed by the devotees. He was so overwhelmed with divine ecstasy that he was staggering. He could not walk that short distance without help. Two devotees held onto his arms and helped him to slowly move forward. A few people were standing at the end of the lane, not understanding the master's condition. They said amongst themselves, "Oh, look, that man is dead drunk." We heard their remark, although they spoke in low tones. We couldn't help but laugh and say to ourselves, "Dead drunk indeed." Yeah. Mm. At Dakshineshwar, one day the master asked the Holy Mother to prepare a few betel rolls and clean his bed and room while he went to bow down to the Divine Mother in the Kali temple. She hurried through her work and had almost finished when the master returned from the temple. When he entered the room, he seemed completely intoxicated. His eyes were red, his steps were terribly unsteady, and his speech was indistinct and incoherent. So, that is how his appearance was. And as he saw Holy Mother, he thought that what will she think now? "Hello, have I drunk wine?" he asked. Immediately the Holy Mother looked around and was amazed to see the master in that ecstatic state. She said, "No, no, why should you drink wine?" "Why then am I staggering?" asked the master. "Why can't I speak? Am I drunk?" Holy Mother replied, "No, no, you haven't drunk wine. You have drunk the divine nectar of Mother Kali." So that is how Holy Mother's understanding and the deep awareness was. Since the devotees had begun to visit Master and received his grace, almost once or twice a week the Master visited one or two of the Calcutta devotees in their homes. If a devotee could not visit him on a regular basis, or if he could get no news about that person through someone else, the gracious master would rush to see him. Just you have to visualize the situation, the surroundings of that time of Kolkata. That Dakshineshwar was a few miles away from the main city where most of the devotees were staying. So, therefore, it would not be easy for them to come to Dakshineshwar. There were no motorized vehicles, you see. So, one has to hire a horse carriage to get there, or just walk. Therefore, many could not go there regularly. Also, there were no easy ways of getting the news. Nowadays, just picked out your cell phone from your hip pocket and then call somewhere, maybe in Australia, right, sitting in Providence. Yeah, it is like that. So those were not the days with all this. So master wouldn't get the news of so many. So he would visit if once in 2 weeks to some one devotee's place, and all others would gather there because they were then living close by, and so they would gather there and master would meet everybody. Beni Saha of Baranagar had some good hackney carriages. Because the master frequently visited Calcutta, it was arranged with Beni that he would send a carriage to Dakshineshwar as soon as he heard from the master. He would raise no objection if the carriage returned from Calcutta late at night. he was paid for this extra time at his regular rate. At first, payment of the carriage fare was covered by Mathur, then by Mani Sen of Panihati, Shambhu Malik, and Jayagopal Sen of Sinduriya Pati, Calcutta. But when the master visited the house of a particular devotee, that person would pay the fare if it was within his means. One day, the master decided to visit Jadu Malik's house in Calcutta to see his mother, who was very devoted to master. So this is a different Malik, that who used to pay for the carriage fare was Shambhu Malik, who used to have a house right close to Dakshineshwar, in the same, almost the same compound. And this Jadu Malik, he also had another house right in Dakshineshwar, right at the gate. So, one day the master decided to visit his Jadu Malik's house in Calcutta to see his mother, who was very devoted to the master. The master had not heard any news about the family for a long time. A carriage arrived after the master had finished his lunch. Meanwhile, our friend A, it is instead of giving the name, had said A, had come to Dakshineshwar by boat to see the master. The master inquired about A's welfare and then said, "It is nice that you have come. I am going to Jadu's house today. On the way, I shall stop at your house and see G, whose work has kept him from coming here for many days. Let's go together." A agreed. He was then newly acquainted with the master and had seen him at only a few places. He did not yet know that the wonderful master could experience Bhava Samadhi at any time. And this is the Bhava Samadhi, is to just get an idea of how it is different from the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. In the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there is the deep inner awareness of the Absolute, no form of anything is seen. There is no time-space awareness at all. That is Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The ego is completely gone. Now Bhava Samadhi is where you get into the awareness of a particular manifestation of divine, like they feel of, say, Krishna. So you see Krishna, or you see Mother Kali and all that. So you are seeing these divine forms. So that was the awareness. That is called Bhava Samadhi. And this devotee didn't think about that. So the master got into the carriage. The young devotee Latu, now known as Swami Adbhutananda, now means, when the book was being written, now took the master's towel, spice bag and other necessities and followed him into the carriage. A also climbed in. The master sat on one side and Latu and A occupied the other. The carriage started, and after crossing through the market at Baranagar, it passed by Moti Lake. Nothing eventful happened. As the childlike master saw the various sights along the way, he asked questions of Latu and A or made jokes on different topics as he normally did. There was a small market to the south of the Moti Lake. To that south of that market was a tavern, a dispensary, a few rice warehouses with tiled roofs, and a stable. At this point, the same road went straight towards Calcutta, but another wide road extended right up to the Ganges, and one could take it to the well-known Sarvamangala and Chitreshwari temples. In the tavern, some drunkards were drinking and laughing noisily. Some of them were singing out of joy, and some were dancing and gesticulating. The owner of the tavern, having engaged in his bartender in serving his customers, was standing absent-mindedly at the door of the shop. There was a large vermilion mark on his forehead. The master's carriage passed in front of the tavern just then. Perhaps the owner knew the master. When he saw him in the carriage, he saluted him with both hands. The noise in the tavern attracted the master's attention, and he perceived the merry mood of the drinkers. The bliss of God arose in the master's mind as he observed their intoxicated delight. But in addition to this bliss, he also experienced a state of drunkenness. And that is how the bliss, this happiness inspired him, the source of all happiness, the bliss. And that made him lose the outer consciousness of where he is and became like drunkard, very unsteady. So, and then it was described here further. A said, "We had no warning that the master would suddenly be in that ecstatic state." He had known the master for a very short time then. He had been talking like a normal person, but his mood changed so abruptly when he saw those drunkards. It was, I was scared to death. I was about to grab him and pull him back inside the carriage, but immediately Latu intervened, saying, "You don't have to do anything. He will control himself and won't fall." So I kept quiet. But my heart was palpitating. I thought that I had made a mistake by traveling in the same carriage with this mad master. I told myself I would never do so again. Of course, describing these events takes more time than the events themselves. So the carriage continued past the tavern, and the master returned to his seat. When the master saw the Sarvamangala temple, he said that goddess Sarvamangala is a living deity. Bow down to her. Saying so, he himself bowed down, and we followed his example. When I looked at the master, then I found him to be as usual, smiling gently. But my heart did not stop palpitating for a long time, as I kept remembering what a bloody accident could have happened if he had fallen from the carriage. When the carriage reached our house, the master said to me, "Go and find out whether G is at home." I went, came back, and reported, "No, G is not at home." He then said, "Well, I missed G. I thought I would ask him to pay today's extra carriage fare. However, I am now acquainted with you. Could you pay 1 rupee today? You see, Jadu Malik is a miserly man. He will not pay more than the fixed fare of 2 rupees and 4 annas. But after I have visited several devotees, who knows how late I shall return to Dakshineshwar tonight. If it becomes too late, the driver pesters me to return. So it has been arranged with Beni that however late it may be, the driver will not disturb me if he is paid 3 rupees and 4 annas. I am asking you because Jadu will pay 2 rupees and 4 annas, and if you pay 1 rupee, then there will be no problem for today's fare. That time this 1 rupee, 2 rupee was a big sum. You can see that is the reason many devotees could not come to Dakshineshwar from Kolkata taking the hired carriage. It would be very pricey. So, because 1 rupee means, the monthly salary of a school teacher used to be about 5 rupees. So, imagine, in that scale how big the sum was. So, this A probably was rich enough to pay 1 rupee. So, I gave 1 rupee to Latu and bowed down to the master, who then left to see Jadu Malik. Such an apparently intoxicated state could come over the master on any day at any time. It is not possible to record all such events for the reader. The master told stories about the travelling monks who visited Rasmani's Kali temple, not only to us, but to many others also. There are still many alive to testify to this. Not now, it is in 1915 or 16 when this book was getting written. That is the time. At that time, we were studying in St. Xavier's College, which was closed on Thursdays and Sundays. This allowed us to visit Master on Thursdays, while many devotees visited the Master on Sundays and Saturdays and Sundays. Thus we had the opportunity to hear various stories of his life. With the exception of the Bhairavi Brahmani, Totapuri, Sufi Govinda, the monk who had came providentially to the Kali temple to protect the master's body by forcibly feeding him during the 6 months of his Nirvikalpa state, and 1 or 2 others like that, it is evident that each of the monks and aspirants of various denominations who arrived before we did came to enrich their respective spiritual lives with the help of the Master's wonderful life. This is the main idea that we have been studying in this particular chapter. The heading for this is as a guru to sadhus of various orders. This volume that we are studying is Sri Ramakrishna as a guru or a teacher. And we saw that Sri Ramakrishna's teachership was a spontaneous teachership. Not that, okay, I will hold a class for you and learn, take notes, keep your books ready, and no, not like that. His teachership was of this type, like a flower A fragrant flower doesn't have to say, hey, you guys come, I am going to now give out fragrance. It is a spontaneous thing that the flower scatters the fragrance. So Sri Ramakrishna's teachership was spontaneous of that type. So he has given some chronology of those monks and aspirants' arrival at Dakshineshwar illustrates another truth. For the convenience of studying this chronology, in this chapter we have told the reader as far as possible the words of the Master as we heard them. We understood from what the Master told us that whenever he practiced and realized the goal of a particular mode of worship and sadhana, true aspirants of that religious sect would come to him in groups for some time, and he would discuss that particular sadhana with them day and night. That is how it is, we should say providential arrangement, you see. It is, he has now the storehouse of that particular type of spiritual practice, which he can now illustrate. So those who are doing that would somehow get the information. That information, how do you get? Well, if you are seeking, you somehow find it. Like I told, we had one close Bengali neighbor when I used to be in the city of Nagpur. And then he would get fish from somewhere, and it was not very easy to find fish in Nagpur city. So I asked him, hey, where do you get such things here? It is not easy to find fish here. How do you get it? And he said, well, Swami, we are Bengalis. So we can't live without fish. A fish may be able to live without water, but a Bengali cannot live without a fish. And so we find out somehow or other where we can get it. So similarly, these mendicants, the sadhus, the monks of various different paths, now they are looking for advancement on that path. And so where can it be found? They would come to Sri Ramakrishna without any invitation, without any inkling as to where they are going. It is an automatic thing that would draw them there, and then Sri Ramakrishna would fulfill their hearts that desire. So that is how this idea is. We shall continue this discussion next Tuesday. So we shall think of what we studied for a little while, for 30 seconds. And then if you have any question, please give it out. Yes, any question there?
Yes, Swamiji, there is a question here from Sarada page.
Yes.
Pranam Swamiji. My question is, how can one immediately differentiate between a false guru peddling untruths and a true avatar of God such as Sri Ramakrishna?
Well, there is, it is very important question. And then a disciple, a would-be disciple, one who is actually seeking the advice of a guru, should be very vigilant. Vigilant about what he or she is seeking. If you are seeking anything that is bordering on just getting some more sense pleasures, some more money, and all such things, then you are most likely to get cheated. Because that is how there will be the false gurus. False gurus are there because there are false disciples also. A true disciple who is seeking God alone is not likely to get cheated, because would see whether that person is honest or not. Sri Ramakrishna gave these two indications, the lust and greed, kama kanchana, that if you see that teacher is after money and such things, then no, that is not the teacher. If you see that teacher is not after them, then there is no chance that you will get deceived. We get deceived because we also want such things. That, oh, let all my diseases go away. Oh, please do. All such prayers are there, you know. Oh, may corona never touch me. Now, if we have such desires, then naturally there will spring up the gurus who will. It is the question of demand and supply, you say. So, therefore, the best thing is to see that are we seeking really spiritual advice, or it is mixed with so many other desires in life. I would suggest, Sarada, please read Swami Vivekananda's Bhakti Yoga, where he has given, there is a chapter about the science of true guru, science of true disciple, and so forth. So, it is the interesting thing that I noticed here, that while discussing the science of guru, Swamiji first discussed the science of disciple. Because if the disciple is right, that disciple would find the right guru also. Otherwise, that it is the disciple is seeking something else, as such gurus also will be plentifully available. That and you get cheated because of that. It is so. This is one important thing to notice about it. But it is a difficult thing by just looking externally. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say that, well, look at that person's life. Don't only hear what he talks. Look at the life of that person. How unselfish that person is. How loving is that person. And has no desire for these lust and such things to get from this process. So, that is how the true guru, he uses the three words that you hear in the Vedic teachings about it. How should a guru be? That it is that Shrotriyo Avrigino Akamahata, that it's that teacher should know this import of the scriptures, that God realization alone is the goal of life. All scriptures you will see are converging on this point. So that is the import of the scriptures that should be grasped by the teacher. That is the meaning of Shrotriya. Then avrijinah, should be leading a morally consistent and pure life. There should not be a cheat telling you one thing and doing something different. So, an honest teacher. Then the third thing is akamahata. He or she is not giving the knowledge for some ulterior motive. These three are the signs by which one can identify a true teacher.
I have a question, Swamiji.
Yes, please.
During the course of the study today, we heard a name, Sufi Govinda, who came to help Sri Ramakrishna.
Yeah.
Now, I'm wondering if he is the teacher, Govinda Rai, who taught Islam,
Yeah.
Sri Ramakrishna.
Yes.
Same person.
Yes.
Okay.
Probably. Yeah. It is Sufi Govindarai is the same person. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, then let us conclude with the closing prayers. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.